listeners, and welcome to another episode of Pop Screen, part of the Geek Show podcast network. We're the corner of the Geek Show that likes to look at the good, the bad, and the preposterous of movies, either starring, about, or by pop stars. The podcast covers such a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from country and western to hip-hop, from documentaries to science fiction. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a film critic for the Geek Show, and I write for Horrified.com, the British horror website. I've been joined this week by...
Gav Smith.
Hey Gav, where can people find you?
They can find me at the My Favorite Film podcast, which on Twitter is at My Favorite Film. I also write for the Geek Show. A few film reviews gone up there recently, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
An epic science fiction story about Matthew McConaughey abandoning his kids to go down a wormhole. No, of course not. This week's film is Interstellar 5555, the 5 Tauri of the 5 Ecrit 5 Tar 5 Istum. Look, you put the numbers in, you're asking for it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's an anime designed as a visual accompaniment to Daft Punk's landmark 2001 album Discovery. Developed alongside the album, the band travelled to Tokyo every month to supervise production, meaning climate change is basically their fault. And
that's where they wear the helmets.
Yeah, so they're not recognised by angry mobs.
Spot on.
This was something that I was certainly happy to cover, but it was something that you pitched us, wasn't it, Gav?
It was, yeah.
So is it through, I can think of 3 reasons, is it through a love of Daft Punk, a love of anime, or you just can't wait for James Cameron to give us more blue space people?
All 3. No. Yeah, love Daft Punk, always have. Homework was an album that I played on a loop when it first came out.
Yeah.
When Discovery came out, that first song that they released from it, One More Time, which is the first song on the album and the film, was just such a, I guess it's the time of year, the time it was in my life. I was I think it was my very, very early 30s. I think I was single at the time, so clubs were beckoning and whatever else, and this was the music that was on, so it kind of filled my head from that point in time. And I think then I saw the video on it. Was probably MTV, and it just took me back to my youth. The animation style is like, I don't know if you remember it, there was an old cartoon series called Battle for Planets.
Oh yeah,
which was the Americanized version of Gatchaman. And effectively all they did was they took the original Gatchaman cartoons and they dubbed them in American accents over the top and changed the whole stories. Probably very similar to what we did with Magic Roundabout back in the day when we took the French animation and stuck English words over the top.
I'd never really thought of the Magic Roundabout as an anime pioneer, but now you mention it,
definitely
makes sense.
Definitely is, yeah. But yeah, the animation style is exactly the same as that.
Yeah,
it took me back to early 80s, sitting in Saturday morning watching cartoons, and it was just I want to watch all this. And I thought it was they've just done a nice cartoon for the first song, as a video, because Daft Punk don't like to be in their videos, they don't like to be seen, they hide behind their masks and their helmets and whatever else. Then of course they released Aerodynamics straight afterwards, and then I heard there was a film as well, so I was like, I've got to find that. Did never get a chance to see it at the cinema. I don't think it got a very big cinema release, to be honest.
No, I remember seeing it advertised at the Tyneside, but that's about the limit of it, as far as I can remember.
I picked it up on DVD as soon as I could, and just brilliant. It blew me away, the fact that they'd managed to create this really cohesive story that fits into every song on the album in some way. And they do the whole thing without any words at all, because the only words in it are the song lyrics, and most of Daft Punk songs don't have lyrics. There's an awful lot of instrumental in this, so the fact that you can then tell a story that you can actually understand fully without any lyrics at all is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, not only then is there no dialogue, there's also very few sound effects. The soundtrack to Interstellar 5555 is basically someone puts on the album Discovery, and that's it.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's I think the only sound effects you hear other than the normal albums, if the album was on, is cars. You
Yeah.
get the occasional car noise as they screech tires around things, occasional explosion. But that's pretty much it. The rest of it is just the album.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, there's something about this album. I mean, if you listen to this album, it's one of those ones you can just put on and you can just listen to it all the way through. It's got upbeat, it's got downbeat, and it's got a consistent kind of beat that goes the whole way through. There is a thud that you hear all the way through it that's just there on every song. Yeah.
It's funny, going back to it for this, because I did love the album when it came out. I hadn't listened to it in a while, and part of the fun of this film was just like listening to it again, thinking, "Oh God, yeah, Discovery's a really great album."
It is.
I remember, and I checked on Wikipedia and found that this was the case, and my memory wasn't cheating. I remember that although it was very popular, it had this really divided critical reception, which I think was because Daft Punk had come out with Homework, and that was cutting edge house stuff. It was cutting edge sonically. It was cutting edge in terms of how they made it. It was produced at their home, hence the title, at a time when that was a very rare thing for a band to do.
Yeah.
And then they come out with this new album a few years later, which is highly anticipated, but it seems to be, it is deliberately experimenting with sounds that are very uncool. Like it must be the only house album of its generation to include a Barry Manilow sample. I'm pretty confident of that.
Yes, I think you can guarantee that one, would have thought. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's I guess they call it house music, but it's not quite the house music that you would have expected to hear at that time. It's not the same. It's a much more mellow house music than most of the stuff that was around.
It's more disco inflected, isn't it? As well,
and it's a long way away from Homework from that point of view as well. Which then, REM that came out later is, again, it's another step away from that.
Yeah,
where you've got proper singers on it. You've got Pharrell Williams singing along there, and it's a very different type of album again. But it's, I don't know. I will always go back to this one. You say you know that you'd been a while since you listened to it. I probably would put this on. It'll go on in the car. On my long journeys to work, it'll probably hit my stereo every month or so. One listen through. It's just one of those albums that I'm quite happy to drive to because it's just nice to drive to.
Yeah, and I also thought it's just got a deep bench of stuff. Like I remember the singles because everyone remembers the singles. Yeah. But there's stuff in there like Verity Quo, which is like Daft Punk trying to do Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds or something. It's incredible. Loads of songs that you forget.
Yeah, and that one, that's not dance music. Anyway, it's not what you'd expect to hear at a rave or something. It's just a really nice mellow tune, and in the film it's used at a perfect point. Yeah. The sort of visuals that go along with it is just fantastic at that point. Yeah.
Is it worth getting into the plot of it? Because it's I don't think it's too thin a plot. I think it's a plot that is crafted well to the restrictions that the film has.
Yeah, we could go through it song by song, and you could kind of go through the whole story and how it fits to each song if you really want to, but it depends on how in depth you want to go.
Well, if you feel like you can do a song by song, because one of the first episodes of Pop Screen I did was an analysis of Holy Motors, where we went through it and analysed every single weird character Denis Lavant is playing. So if we can do that, we can do this.
I'll give it a try. It opens with One More Time.
Yeah.
As the album does. In fact, it actually opens with Matsumoto, who's the supervising director and was in charge of the animation house that was making it, in kind of little black and white film, talking about his dream to bring this to life, I guess. It's a very short piece. It's kind of interspersed with the titles that are coming up at the start. It's very grainy, and you just get subtitles over the bottom. And then you kind of get fired off into space, and you get this anime. It's kind of classic anime in that they use as few frames as possible. So the animation is repeating the same frames over and over again, or characters don't actually move. They're not animated. They just move through the scene, which is it doesn't affect the way it looks. It makes it look different, and I suppose makes it look beautiful in its own way. But it's certainly not, it's not a Disney production of any sort. The quality there is a very different type of animation quality.
Yeah, it's like Western animation, particularly in the classic era of Disney and Tex Avery, is based on a kind of stretchiness and fluidity, whereas Japanese animation is almost like, I suppose it's because it is derived from manga, isn't it? There's a sense of it like blasting from splash frame to splash frame like that.
So it starts then in space at a rock concert of some sort, where a band, who I don't think are named.
I was going to ask you that. They never are they? No,
they obviously later on. They're the how do you pronounce it? Crescendolls? I guess is probably the pronunciation, which is one of the songs we'll get onto later. That's what they are when they appear as their new incarnations, which we'll get to as we go through. So we see this band in space playing a gig effectively, and they're playing One More Time. And we're introducing, obviously they've got no names, there's no character names here. We're just introduced to the 4 members of the band. You see the 4 members of the band. So there's the hip rock guitarist who's the singer. There's the cool chick guitarist who's the
bassist,
sort of the bassist, and then we've got the cool guy on the keyboards, because they're all cool, and then the weird looking one on the drums.
I'd never really thought of that as a cinematic drummer joke, but you're right.
But that's the band, and they're all blue skinned, as you said, so they are extras from Avatar. And they're singing this One More Time to probably the biggest crowd that there could be, and everyone's bopping along and everyone's having a great time, and they're all blue, and everyone pretty much looks the same as either the singer, the guitarist, the bass player rather, or the keyboard player, or the drummer in some way.
The unlucky ones have a resemblance to the drummer.
Normally there seems to be a lot of children around in the audience who look very much like the drummers.
Yes.
But they're playing away, and we get One More Time all the way through, and it's brilliant done. Towards the end of it, we see a spaceship appearing in space, and that leads us to the bell chimes, which symbolize the start of aerodynamic.
Oh man, aerodynamic.
And they're
it's the one that I associate most with this album. I just love that song so much.
It's brilliant. And what's, I suppose, a great thing about this is the end titles. If you bother watching all the way end, there's a lovely remix of Aerodynamic on the end. So their longer version is stuck on at the end, which is quite nice to listen to if you do get to that point.
And that doesn't exist anywhere else, does it? I was unaware of it coming out.
You can. They did. There was an album that came out, a very limited release one called Daft Club.
Right.
Which came out just after Discovery, which is remixes of Discovery, and that remix appears on that.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a geek.
That's good. That's what this podcast's for. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can get it elsewhere, but it's a longer and it's a slightly different version of Aerodynamic. And I'm pretty sure it then goes back into One More Time and its ending. So you get it going. It's the 2 songs do fit together nicely, and the way it works, it goes back into One More Time towards the end of it. So it's an interesting one. But the bell chime is basically the klaxon saying that we're under attack.
Yeah.
So we now get the alien race that just come down in their sheaths and their army to take the band away. Is the basic point, and it's that whole beat of Aerodynamic is the war effectively, or they're marching through the stadium to catch the band and take them away, gassing everyone in sight, because that's how they get them. They gas the whole of the planet effectively. In
Much
order
like
to kidnap
Daft
the
Punk
band.
did when they single-handedly caused climate change with their flight to Tokyo.
Every other week, yeah. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. This whole song is just that, and it ends with the band being put into, I guess, sort of science fiction status pods.
They're kind of like the things from Alien, aren't they? At the start of Alien, where they all wake up in these little pods. They're like those.
Yeah, and including their instruments, because they have a really big pod. They put the drum kit in, and all of the guitars and everything else gets put in this big pod, and they go off into space, into a spaceship that looks very much like a whale. It's a very odd-looking spaceship. And at the last minute, one of the security guards, who looks suspiciously like the drummer, because the weird guys all do look the same in this, sends off a distress signal. The distress signal being it's video, I can show it, being that. There you go.
Yes, the kind of neon guitar thing, right? Yeah.
Which is the ship of the guy who then sings Digital Love.
Yeah, he's called Shep, which makes me think.
Oh, does he get a name? Where did you find that?
There is a synopsis on Wikipedia that has some names. Right. It's got some details that, having watched the film, I would actually quibble a bit with. But I see no reason to doubt that he is called Shep, and he is indeed an obedient puppy dog. So,
well, he is, isn't he?
Yeah, it works.
See, I always took it that he obviously knows the band. It's not just that he's a fan, and he must be something for this distress call to be sent out and happen to be the same shape as the ship that he happens to be in.
Yeah,
there's got to be a connection there. And later on, when he does rescue the band, which obviously we'll get into, they recognize him. They know who he is. But we get this Digital Love, which is a great song. It's one of the most mellow songs on the whole album.
Yeah.
And he's singing that whilst he's polishing the outside of his spaceship.
Yeah, which isn't a euphemism.
No, it's not at all. It's actually what he's doing.
Yeah.
He has a bit of a dream sequence as part of that, where he meets up with the bassist of the band, and then he gets the distress call and tracks down the whale spaceship, the ship of the guys.
Yeah. Digital Love is kind of interesting as a song because in some ways it's the furthest away from that house sound that they had on Homework.
Absolutely, yeah.
It goes furthest into the kind of soft rock end of the inspirations for the album, but it was also one of the biggest hits, and I found out a lovely fact about it while I was researching this.
Go on.
You know the keyboard break in it that sounds very much like Dreamer by Supertramp?
Yes.
That was played on the actual Wurlitzer that Supertramp used to use.
Wow. So that's why it sounds like it then.
That's why it really sounds like Supertramp, yeah.
Wow, yeah. That's cool. Makes a lot of sense as well, actually, because it does sound very like it, yeah. So I thought it was a sample, to be honest.
I think
rather than something played.
The band have said that a lot of people, there are plenty of samples on the record, as we said.
Oh, yeah.
There's the Barry Manilow sample, but they've said a lot of people seem to think there are more samples than there actually are because I guess the instruments are such precise recreations of these kind of nostalgic disco and soft rock sounds that they're interested in here.
Yeah. And this one's, there's a sample from I Love You More by George Duke is what's used as the bass line for Digital Love.
It's like the sort of chords that started off, the chords that just rise and don't really sort of resolve. Yeah, that's where it's from. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an interesting sample on One More Time, actually, which they only got sorted out recently.
Right.
But it's quite an obscure disco record called More Spell on You by Eddie Johns. And there was a
Right.
very good and quite sad Los Angeles Times article about the struggle, they had, that he had to actually get the payment for that, because after his
Yeah.
recording career crashed, he'd lived a very difficult life. He was homeless for a lot of it. So,
Right.
it gets to that point where it's one thing to sample Barry Manilow, and you can just find Barry Manilow's publishing company. But how do
Absolutely,
you
yeah.
get the money to a guy who's living on the streets?
Yeah. Weird, because obviously I'm looking at my notes here, and it's got all these samples of all the songs are sort of on there.
Yeah.
And One More Time has nothing about samples. So I guess at the time of this film's release, they weren't even saying we'd sampled anything on that song.
Yeah.
It literally all it has down for that song is vocals performed by
Rom Anthony, isn't it?
Oh, it does say Rom Anthony, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. So yeah.
It's a good article. Definitely read that if you get the chance. Yeah.
I'll have to have a look, yeah. So that's Digital Love, which finishes with Shep, as we now know he's called.
Old Shep, yeah.
Yeah, old Shep, getting the call, the signal, and going after this whale spaceship, which passes through a strange spinning square in space, which I guess is the way through to the other side of the Eret 5 terrace system. I can't say it the way you did. I'm sorry. It's the way of getting out of the secret star system and back to our star system.
Yeah.
Because the whale ship basically comes to Earth, or certainly what looks like it could be Earth. And we go into Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which is far more into that whole house sound that we're used to from Daft Punk.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Which is certainly the one that everyone probably knows from the album as much as Aerodynamic and One More Time. It's the one that was used in countless videos of different things to do stuff.
It's the one that Kanye West tore the ass out of for Stronger.
Absolutely.
Big salute to, was it Simon Reynolds, the music writer, who said that you listen to Stronger by Kanye West and all you could think of is, that Daft Punk song's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But this one is the one that, so now we've got to Earth. We've kind of seen a mysterious figure at some points during it, who's obviously the leader of these, I don't know, the aliens that he's sending to get these bands. But we now have the whole band taken from their status pods and into some sort of great machine. So the whole beat of Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is about them being transformed from their alien beings to humans, including painting their bodies.
That's quite a nice touch, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Don't quite know how it works. Obviously, they paint their bodies. They leave all their underwear on. That has to be noted at this point. So although they take off all of their clothes, their underwear is left intact.
This is a PG certificate film,
absolutely,
and there'll be none of that stuff.
Yeah, there's no nakedness in this at all. All of the band are very well built, let's just say, in this animation section, including the weird looking drummer. He's got quite a six-pack on him, it has to be said.
I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, that if they're going to be a major pop band, they're going to get some groupies, and what are they going to think when they undress and find that they have like bright blue genitals?
Yes. Although it doesn't, possibly it does appear though when the paint things splash at them, they do seem to seep around.
Yes, that's
so
true.
Maybe it seeps underneath their underwear.
It's I think whenever you have a flaw like this in a science fiction movie, you just say it's nanites, don't you? It's
yes, that'll work.
Yeah, nobody actually understands that stuff, and it can just do anything.
Yeah, there's some lovely sequences this though, where they because they wipe their brains. So we have this wonderful bit where they're showing memories of each of the band members as children in space, and they then adapt them to become what they would have been if they're on Earth. So they've got them flying through space on hover bikes or whatever else, and then suddenly they're on a little tricycle running through the cornfields. And and crucially, their original memories are saved on a disc that is put to one side whilst all this is happening. And that's a crucial plot point that we will come back to at the end.
We will, yes.
We will. So yeah, they wipe their brains. They adjust all of their memories, make all of their memories fit to this new human persona. So when they wake up, they believe they have always been on Earth and that they're a band called the Crescent Dolls.
Because bit Philip K. Dick, isn't it? The idea of screen memories. Yeah.
Yeah. It is, isn't it? It's very what was it? Total Recall, I guess.
Yeah,
to a certain point of view. Or We'll Remember It For You Wholesale, which I think was the name of the original.
Yes, it was.
Story. Yeah. But yeah, being able to store their memories on these discs and whatever else. Yeah, Crescent Dolls then is the big song. Well, it's not a big song. It's a chant more than anything else. You get all this wonderful chanting noise going on, which is because it's their introduction to the Earth audience. They're actually playing One More Time because they show that loads of times that's what they're singing, but we're hearing Crescent Dolls in the background. The car even turns up with Crescent Dolls as the license plate and things like that. I guess they called them that just because it happened to fit that the first time they come up, it happens to be that track that's going to be played. So that sounds like a good enough name. I don't know how.
It's symbiotic as far as I can tell. They were thinking about this stuff while they were recording the album. Right. So it's possible that it was called Crescent Dolls because that's what they always wanted to call the band. But
call the band, yeah. It's really difficult to work out what's going on. But Crescent Dolls is their introduction to the world, and we get them there. We see them on stage playing their song. At the same time, our fallen spaceman he crash landed much earlier. He's now getting his way through the city and trying to get to where they are. And he manages to get the band, other than the bass player, out of the stadium where they are having their debut performance, effectively.
Yes.
So he saves everyone, all the men of the band, in a little car and drives off.
So this is when we're seeing the Crescent Dolls introduced a bit earlier, though. This is where I have a bone to pick with Wikipedia.
Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
They say that the names of the band characters are Octave, the keyboardist, Arpeggius, the guitarist, Stella, the bassist, and Barrel, the drummer, which
fair enough
is great. But those are the names that are displayed when they're the Crescent Dolls. Those names come up in advertising for the Crescent Dolls. And it's like, that can't be their actual names, because I feel like kidnapping a famous band in order to pretend to be a different famous band is already a plan that is fraught with potential pitfalls.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Getting them to do it under their actual name seems to me to be really suicidally stupid.
But I suppose they build it up in the fact that they've traveled through some strange interdimensional rift in space and time and whatever else to get to Earth from wherever it is they've come from, and in the fact that they've wiped their memories in this, to wipe their memories and change their name would become quite problematic as well. I would have thought, by changing their memories the way they have. I guess they're just not changing their names in it, so they've got the same name all the way through it. Possibly it works
probably
that way.
A plot that is not worth examining in this kind of detail in a lot of ways, really, isn't it? Yeah,
it's one of those things. I mean, it has got a really good plot, and I would. It would be nice to see this film with words put to it, so an actual script.
Yeah,
actually. They're speaking, and you've got things you can pick it all up anyway without it. But it would be interesting to see it as a proper anime, I suppose, with them talking and hearing all the story and whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this
That
is
might happen one day.
over that section. What you've got two songs, haven't you? Over the section where he rescues them, you've got
Yeah.
Night Vision, which is
Yeah.
like a really pretty short interlude.
It is really short. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's superheroes, isn't it? When
Yes.
he rescues them. Yeah.
Yeah. He rescues them, but is immediately shot, unfortunately.
Mm.
In the rescue attempt, is shot through the back of his chair. And we see his green blood dripping on the car as they still manage to escape. I think that's pretty much it for those two songs, basically. They're both fairly shortish songs, really. Superheroes and Night Vision. So you get them being rescued, taken away. Everyone but Stella, as it appears she's now called, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. Who then goes into High Life, and High Life is about her being shown off, I suppose, by a media mogul. Does he get a name in Wikipedia?
He according to Wikipedia, he glories under the name Earl de Darkwood.
Yes, of course he is.
There
it's
is
Darkwood Manor they go to, isn't it?
Yeah.
Later on. Yeah, of course he's Earl de Darkwood. Yeah, he does get a name, you're right. But it's difficult to see where that all comes from at this point in time, because you don't get that till later on.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. If there was a version of the film with words in it, you'd obviously get all of that information would be coming up as you're watching it, and you'd know who they all were. So High Life's about her being shown off. At the same time, the rest of the band, minus our spaceman Shep, are going to save her. So they save her in a taxi, and manage to get her back to their hideout, wherever that happens to be. Kind of in a back street somewhere with some odd people hanging around. Which leads us into Something About Us, which is another one of the singles that I think got an awful lot of play, and everyone will probably know Something About Us. It's another really slow one. It's a bit like Digital Love, from that same type of sound.
It's the sort of thing where I always feel like with Something About Us, if you took away some of the more like eccentric sounds, particularly the vocoder, which of course is a thing that Daft Punk always use, but it could be like the slow one on an early Michael Jackson album, couldn't it? It's got a bit of Human Nature or Liberian Girl to it.
I mean, it's a lovely song, and the visuals that go with it. Don't know, they're trying to tell you this story that there's something more between Shep and Stella, I suppose. He manages he touches her hand and takes her into some crazy dream world where they're floating in space, as they were in the Digital Love video at the start. But obviously this is his death scene, effectively. He doesn't get a big shout in the film, to be honest. That's it. He's gone. 2 songs and he's out. So we lose our spaceman at that point. I'm just trying to think now what goes on. So,
well, this is where there is a grace note at this point that I think is fantastic, where he shows the band their old identities, and he finally breaks their hypnotic conditioning by using a hologram that shows them not themselves, but like little marionette versions of themselves.
That's it.
And I thought that was so great. And I was thinking, how would that look in live action? And I thought it would be kind of like if someone hypnotized a Marvel actor and then they took him into HMV and he saw all these Funko Pops in front of him. Shit, it's me. And then I thought I'd like to see a film where that actually happens, to be honest.
Because they don't look an awful lot like them, the little marionettes. No. They are like mini Funko Pops, actually. They've got that kind of round head shape and whatever else.
They all look a bit like Barrel, I think, in this version themselves.
Yes, they do. Obviously, as you say, it breaks their hypnotic trance. And we go into Voyager as they travel to Darkwood Manor, because the shape of I think it's the shape of the hologram happens to match the shape of the mountains that Darkwood Manor is on, because they kind of flick from the hologram to those mountains.
Yes, yeah.
And it's, again, I think it's one of the other places where you hear a different sound effect, because you get the sound of rain here because they're in the rain. So as well as car screeching noises, we've got rain sounds that aren't on the album. And Voyage is their journey to Darkwood Manor.
Aptly.
And then Verdis Quo is them finding out the story of the Earl of Darkwood.
Yeah.
Basically.
Now, there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. There's loads goes on here.
This is like most of the plot of the film happens during Verdis Quo.
Absolutely. Because this is not the first band this has happened to.
No.
We go through, and I don't know, there's similarity certainly to every single artist they show here, and probably real artists. And I'm sure that the people making it knew exactly who they were trying to show that this was, but I'm not 100% sure from seeing them. But basically, you see aliens from all over the star systems being stamped to become humans and look like artists that we may know or may not know. I'm not sure. Yeah,
and there's
a
like
big storyline going on. Yeah,
there's a sort of weird human sacrifice element to it as well, which made me wonder a bit if it seems to have faded away now because every mental person on the internet's into QAnon. But like about 10 years ago, there was a big thing in nutter circles about mind-controlled pop stars. And when I was watching this, I did sort of think, did they just watch Interstellar 5555 and mistake it for a documentary? Because this is a bit uncanny that this is happening in here.
Yeah, because it starts really early. It's because they start with a child genius pianist.
Yeah.
In what looks like very, very long ago, before music was ever recorded. It was just playing in concert halls.
Yeah.
But they obviously show him being ritually sacrificed into the volcano at the heart of Darkwood Manor, I guess it is.
I guess, yeah.
And there's the whole thing about 5555 comes out at the end of this, with each page of the book seems to show you different things, because they're basically flicking through a book which is titled Verdis Quo on the front of it. And each bit gives them a bit more. And 5555, was that enough fives?
I think that's the correct number of fives,
is world domination or universal domination, I think it was.
Yes.
So, and this final band that he has got together, the Crescent Dolls, is that final sacrifice that is going to finally give him domination over everything. So we've got, like I say, as you said, an awful lot of stories unpacked at this point. An awful lot.
It's interesting too, because it never struck me before I watched this, but there's something odd that around this exact time in 2001, you've also got Damon Albarn launching Gorillaz, which is also a sort of satire on manufactured pop using animated characters and science fiction devices. And you think, something in the air at this point, wasn't there?
There must have been, mustn't there? Yeah. Just never really thought of that there was that's such a link between them. I guess because Gorillaz was far more in your face at this point, from a point of view of that animated and commercial band becoming an animated band, whatever. This was just kind of behind the scenes, and Daft Punk were already a band that we knew existed. So but there's certainly something there. The storyline's very similar, isn't it, I suppose?
My main memory of Gorillaz around that time is that I'm pretty sure they did actually try and release their first singles incognito. And then everyone heard Tomorrow Comes Today and said, is that Damon Albarn's voice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolute hiding to nothing, really. It's like,
absolutely.
At least sort of kidnap your musicians from another galaxy if you're going to make an animated band. I mean...
Well, And I mean, certainly when Clint Eastwood came out, it was even more obvious that that was Damon Albarn that was singing it.
Yeah, it can't be anyone else.
There was just no way anyone was going to think anything other. So yeah, still a great idea. Still going now, so they're still doing well.
Yeah.
He's making his money. That leads into Short Circuit,
which is a crazy song. I'd forgotten how weird that sounded.
Yeah. But they're now going to catch, or they basically, all these aliens I think we've seen at the start are now the cult that live underneath the manor, big robes and things, looking like monks. The bouncers that have been looking after the Crescent Dolls when they sort of appeared are there. They're still working for them, and this is the capturing of Stella, because it's only really Stella he needs to sacrifice to whatever it is he's sacrificing them to. This strange, powerful tower that has what look like platinum discs, all the way up it. Quite a phallic image, to be honest. With all the discs in the top of it and whatever else. But he sacrifices her to the gods of the volcano, I guess. Trying to get this album that appears with the 4 5s on it, 4 5s. The rest of the band aren't happy with that though, and they manage to beat the bodyguards up.
Yeah.
In order to knock Darkwood down in the volcano instead and save Stella, and yay, it's all good.
Yes.
But that's not the end of it. Which sounds like it should be the end of it.
There's still 2 songs to go.
Exactly, because I thought that point, I thought they can't finish it there because there's still another 2 songs, and it isn't the end of it. So we've now had there's 2 parts of the story effectively. There's been the kidnapping.
Yeah.
There's been the spaceman coming and rescuing them, and I didn't mention actually during Voyager is also the funeral for the spaceman. As they take him off to the forest and they bury him, and we see him disappear and ascend into the stars. It's very nice. It's very nicely put together. And then there's the beating of Darkwood, what Darkwood's all been up to. Knocking him at the volcano, and then we get Face to Face, which is basically the government, it appears, working out how they're going to put the Crescent Dolls back into their alien personas and send them back off to the star system.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher.
It's a weird twist at the end. I think that they do kind of have them being locked up in a room at some point for a while during this, but yeah, there's loads goes on to get them back to this thing, and those wonderful discs that we mentioned at the start that would be a story point brought back into play, so they can re-put their memories in and clean off the paint again without removing their underwear. And they send them back to their own planet with the aptly titled Too Long to take next. It is a very long track. I think it's the longest song on the album.
Yeah, I don't think it's too long, but it's pretty long.
It's not too long, but it's pretty long. Compared to all the other songs on there, it is a long song. But yeah, that then takes them back to their own planet, and everyone's been restored, and everything's good again, and they're back on their home planet, and they're playing concerts, and it's all good.
But wait, there's something more.
What happens next? Go on, I'll let you spoil the ending.
What happens next is we cut into the bedroom of a child who is listening to this very album, Discovery by Daft Punk, and he has toys of all of the characters that have been seen in this movie, and it was all just a Daft Punk fueled dream.
Oh, imagine that. But mind you, I think if you fell asleep listening to this album, that is the type of Daft Punk fueled dream you might have.
It might well happen. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's scientifically verified. What was the
Yeah.
was the tagline on the Human Centipede posters? 100% medically accurate. Yes, that's what Interstellar 5555 is. 100% medically accurate.
Absolutely, yeah. If
Yeah.
you listen to Discovery late at night on vinyl, has to be on vinyl, because that's how you get the hissing noise of the rain through it, and fall asleep, you will indeed have a dream like this, where you're a spaceman traveling through time and space. Yeah, it's great, and I mean that end bit where they do the show all of the different toys, including the little mannequin thing that you talked about that he shows in the hologram
Yeah.
of the band playing. And I think every single character's there somewhere along the lines in different formats, including all of the aliens that we see being changed into pop stars. So you get loads of different things that are appearing in this guy's toy box. He's got a big toy box. Yeah.
That's like when when Star Wars came out,
Yeah.
and they'd done the toys of Han Solo and Chewbacca and Luke
Yeah.
Skywalker and everyone, but the next movie was still a couple of years away. So like, oh
Yeah.
man, what are all those weird aliens in the cantina?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet kids will buy that.
They'll buy anything, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
just release them all. And we'll give them names that they didn't have in the film.
Absolutely, yes.
We'll just call them things. It doesn't matter. What's that one look like? It looks like it's got a hammerhead. We'll call it Hammerhead. Since then, they've renamed them all, haven't they? But yeah.
Have they? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they've all now got proper alien names.
Oh, come on, man.
If you look on, yeah,
Wikipedia or something, why can't the Star Wars universe embrace its innate daftness?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure those original toys were given much better names than they are now.
Yeah,
because they're all just this. They were what you saw. That one,
yeah.
A tooth sticking out. It's called Snaggletooth. Excellent. We'll call it that. It'll work. That one's got a head like a hammer. Yeah, brilliant.
Toy line run by Roy Walker from TV's Catchphrase.
See what you see. Yeah. So yeah, we get Too Long finishing off the album, and it finishes with them lifting the needle and putting it away, and the little boy gets a kiss goodnight, and that's it. We go into credits with the Aerodynamic remix over the end credits all the way through.
So when, I mean,
That's
you said
film.
you didn't catch this at the pictures. When did you see this
know.
about?
The full film, I wouldn't have seen it until what I think. Oh, would it be 2003, which when it came out on DVD, or 2004 maybe when it came out on DVD?
Right.
So I'd have seen bits of it. I'll have seen all of the singles, the videos for the singles, as they were on TV or on MTV or whatever else. But just never got to see it at the cinema. I think it was such a limited release that unless you were there on the day, you just didn't get to see it.
It's a shame because it's an absolute play loud kind of film, isn't it? You want to see it with a proper sound system in a cinema.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it is, I don't even know if at the cinema it was shown in a full format widescreen. Because obviously the DVD is a 4:3 ratio. And I think I found a version of it on YouTube as well. And it's the 4:3 ratio. So I don't know if there's a widescreen version of it somewhere that exists. I don't know if you can get that, or whether it was actually filmed in that 4:3 square ratio that the classic anime was, I suppose. That it
yeah, I think it felt like a tribute to me, but I didn't notice it that much because I just love 4:3 anyway.
Yeah,
I think it's lovely.
Yeah. It looks nice in that nice square screen. It's just, I suppose, if it was meant for a cinema release, you would have expected, we've got to go for the whole widescreen job and make it look beautiful in that way. But it is a homage to those old anime films as well. So
yeah,
it's best to do it in that format. Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't seen it at all before I did this episode.
All right, okay.
And it's interesting watching it now. It's quite a normal thing for a band, particularly a band at that level. To do a visual album, to have a film that lasts 50 or 60 minutes and plays every track on the album in order with visual accompaniment. Back in the early 2000s, I can't think of anyone else who did that.
Do you know, I mentioned them in our last podcast, Infected they did a video and a film that went along with the album Infected.
And
Now,
what
it's
year
not,
was that?
God, that must be, oh, I might have to look it up on the internet. Hold on. Let me look it up
But
and see
was
if I
that
can
like
get
late 80s, early
it. Probably
90s?
late 80s, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can find some people who were doing similar things in the 80s, and some of the
Yeah.
films like Jerusalem by the Style Council or
Yeah.
It Happened Here by the Pet Shop Boys we have done on Pop Screen, but
Yeah, of course, yeah. Pet Shop
that
Boys did it as well, didn't they? Yeah.
seemed... Sorry?
Pet Shop Boys did it with what was that? What was that?
It Couldn't Happen Here.
Couldn't Happen Here.
Yeah,
That's it.
which I think is a
Yeah.
great movie, by the way. I
It
really
is.
love that film.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like by the early 2000s that had been written off as a kind
Absolutely.
of a thing
Yeah.
that we did when music videos were starting that now looks a bit
Yeah.
embarrassing. No one thought it would come back as far as
No.
I can remember.
No. I mean, videos were just still, I suppose, in the 80s were definitely in their infancy, and it was something that you had to do. Because if you didn't do a video and you couldn't make Top of the Pops, you
The
weren't
song
going
doesn't
to
get
be
played.
played.
Yeah.
And that. And of course, then MTV appearing,
Yeah.
it was a case of we now have a visual medium for music. We need to have something on it. So you need to make videos so we can show something.
Yeah, so it makes perfect sense for it to happen then. But in the early noughties, I mean, I don't think even Gorillaz did anything like this. And you would think out of all the bands around then, they would be ideally positioned to do it.
Absolutely. Gorillaz released, I'm just trying to think, because they did do videos for, obviously they did big videos for all of their songs. They preferred to work with an interactive medium. So their website was set up in such a way that, you could interact with the cast
of
these animated things. You could walk around Kong Studios.
Yeah.
So Kong Studios was perfectly rendered as a website. And you could go around Kong Studios, and it was built in such a way that you could go into the rooms of 2D and Noodle and whatever else, and you could play with their stuff.
Yeah.
So, you go into 2D's room and he's got an Atari ST there, and you can play Atari ST games on their website.
Yeah.
It's a really bizarre thing. Or Noodle's there, and there's guitars and whatever else were there.
Yeah.
And with each successive then version of the Gorillaz that he brought out, so when he brought out the new album, he changed Kong Studios. Eventually with Plastic Beach, the Kong Studios didn't exist anymore. You're on a beach somewhere and you've got different things going on. And I think as they changed the website, they then released a DVD.
Right.
That would be, I guess, a storage of what it used to look like. So there is a DVD, I can't remember what it's called now, that was released just before Demon Days, which is kind of their retrospective on Gorillaz.
Yeah.
So you've got all the videos from the Gorillaz album with lots of bits in it. So it's got a full interactive menu, so you can go back through Kong Studios and you can see all the stuff that was there that was on the website, and interact with the band in that way. But I guess that was their clever way of doing what they wanted to do. Chris,
that sounds good, because I'm glad they released it on DVD, because all the time you were talking, all I could think of was, I wonder how long that would take to download in 2001. It's probably like full working week, really.
Yeah, it was. I remember that the website was there, and if you went onto it, there was so much on it, and there was, because people would find different bits on it, because it was full of Easter eggs, effectively.
Yeah.
If you clicked on a tiny little pixel at the bottom of one of the screens, you'd suddenly be somewhere that you couldn't get to again.
Yeah.
Someone, there was, I guess I had friends at the time that we were all doing the same type of thing, trying to get on this website. I guess, thinking what I was doing at the time, I was working on a support help desk on telephones. So, in between calls, you got a bit bored, and we had access to the internet. So we'd try and do things like that. But, people would find things. I found a way into Murdoch's garage. You can get to all these cars. Like, really? How'd you do that? So then we're all trying to find how to get to Murdoch's garage, and someone did it once, and then they couldn't remember how they did it. So there was loads of things that were hidden in there that you couldn't quite get. But
Yeah.
a lot of it was released on this DVD, which again is full of the same type of Easter egg stuff that you can't get to some of the stuff that's on the disc unless you know exactly the right combination of things to do or the right things to press at the right time. And it's bits that are hidden away. It's quite clever, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of Interstellar 5555, it's like I can understand why this didn't make more of a noise when it came out, despite the fact that Discovery was a massive hit album.
Yeah.
Because it is a type of pop movie that everyone assumed had become extinct. But nowadays, when you look at it in the light of, to pull another science fiction example out, when you look at it in the light of Janelle Monáe's accompanying film for Dirty Computer,
absolutely,
it fits in pretty well, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Janelle Monáe's albums, they're all based
massive
very roughly on it's basically Metropolis or a sequel to Metropolis, isn't it?
Yes,
where the original concept comes from.
It's very densely referenced to a lot of classic science fiction. Yes.
That's a brilliant listen as well, actually. So
I adore Janelle Monáe.
Yeah, some wonderful music. I've got all those albums sitting, just listening to them. They're just beautifully put together.
But yeah, like I say, I hadn't seen this before. Did enjoy it, and it's quite nice to go back to, because they did, I want to say split up, but it seems like a very dramatic way to describe two people not making music anymore. Really, it's like they walked away from each other, I guess.
Yeah, they did RAM, and then they did Tron Legacy's soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
And then I think that was it. Obviously, they appear together in Tron Legacy. There's a section where they are there as the DJs in whatever place it is in Tron that they're in.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it. I think that was when they walked away from each other and, as you say, split up.
Yeah. They do have quite an interesting cinematic legacy for a band who I guess are not really thought of as film stars, not like no one's seen their faces, but
I mean, in Tron Legacy, they're there in their helmets, and that's all you see of them. So it's kind of their trademark, isn't it?
But they have several films they've composed. They also have another film that they directed, Electroma. I don't know if you'd seen this.
Oh, I don't think so. No.
This is very hard to get hold of. I'd love to find a copy, but it's like it's a minimalist road movie that seems to me like, I mean, if this is them homaging the anime they grew up on, I did wonder if Electroma was meant to be their version of what the KLF movie, The White Room, would have been like if that had ever got completed.
Yeah.
Because it's maybe I'm just reaching for that, because there are only really two movies about an enigmatic two-man house band driving through the desert. So yeah,
could be. I mean, they did a story about dogs, androids, firemen, tomatoes is basically the videos of Homework. So they had done films beforehand. I mean, all the videos for Homework appear as that film. I think it's I can't remember the song, but one of the videos is the dog walking through New York
by Spike Jonze. Yes, yeah.
And that's a film called Daft,
right?
Which is then a story about dogs, androids, firemen, and tomatoes. I can't remember whether tomatoes come into it, but that's basically it's 6 of the songs from Homework. So it's not the whole album; it's just 6 of them. It's the 6 singles basically put together as a film, and there is a link between them all, but not quite in the same ways as Interstellar. Interstellar's a definite. It's a story, isn't it?
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, it's out there. Again, I know about it because it's such a long title. You know, I like a long title.
Yeah.
But it is literally, it's just the 6 videos. kind of spliced together in a way that it makes a story.
Yeah. The other movie that I guess is tangentially Daft Punk related is Mia Hansen Love's film Eden, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
No, I'm not.
Mia Hansen Love is a good director,
Yeah.
and she made a film called Eden, which is notable as one of the few like dramas about house music and DJing that isn't total dog shit. I mean, that is it's not an illustrious list.
No.
But it's based on the life of her brother, who was a very hotly tipped DJ on the French house scene at around the same time as Daft Punk emerged, but he never broke through, and he was like the Salieri to Daft Punk's Mozart, or the Llewyn Davis to their Bob Dylan. And that's a really good film. That's worth a watch.
I'll have to find that one and have to watch. Yeah, and Electroma as well, if we can find it somewhere. Do you know?
I would love to find Electroma.
As with most things, you know, it's probably there on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, I found Interstellar 555. I found it on YouTube. The whole version is there. The whole film is there and possible to watch for free.
There is a corner of the internet where every film exists,
absolutely.
And it's just finding it.
Just a case of trying to find it out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll have to have a search for Electroma. If I find it, I will let you know where I find it.
Superb.
It must be there somewhere. It's amazing the type of stuff that you find out there in the big world.
Yeah. So
I think that's it.
I think that's covered it. Yeah, I think that's been a very comprehensive dive into Interstellar 5555. Yeah.
I would recommend it to anyone. It is, if you can handle a film that has got absolutely no talking in it at all, so it's basically a silent movie, just with an album playing over the top of it, then it's brilliant. You just have to watch it to understand the story.
Yeah.
Because it's there.
So if you enjoyed that, listeners, you can get more Pop Screen by donating to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Geek Show, where you'll also get our other movie podcast, Director's Lottery, and my twice weekly Doctor Who reviews. But until then, that's been your lot from the show. I've been Graham.
And I've been Gav.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.